begun.
Okay, excellent. Good morning, Professor Tootle.
Good morning.
Did you have an okay Thanksgiving?
I had a superb Thanksgiving. It's absolutely perfect. I couldn't have
Lovely.
it.
It seems like I saw a picture. It seemed like you were kind of with an extended group, at least part of it.
Yeah, I was with my very large and growing family, and it was
Excellent.
amazing. Except for I do have one niece who lives in Texas, and I do miss her. But other than that, most of my family was gathered.
I love that. Well, how about you, gentlemen? You're welcome to jump in on today's show. You don't have to. Anyone want to voice an opinion? Bart, Jeff, Tony. Okay, you're on page. Tony. Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Thanksgiving. I spent Thanksgiving the day before Thanksgiving with my sister-in-law and my brother and my new kitten. So I've got a new kitten to be thankful
Oh,
for.
fun.
Yeah, it
You
was a
need
good
a
time.
kitten.
Yeah,
I bet you're good around animals. You need a kitten. So good.
yeah, I do. She's a great travel companion too. She was squawking the whole way from Colorado to Kansas. She was
Oh,
just sweet.
lovely. Lovely. All right. Well, Professor, we are going to talk about Thanksgiving a little bit, but only in the context of current events and in contrast with history. And so like a big picture, and it could just be me, and I'm actually going to concentrate on this. I'm going to try to steal a page from you. I don't think you read much social media, or I don't think you take a quick reaction to like you don't have to follow every contemporary blogger out there. And now with AI, it's getting worse. I mean, there's just like all these made up news stations, as you pointed out, and all these made up bloggers, and all of a sudden, instant emergency crisis, which is just the same repeat of somebody else's news. I don't know. I stay abreast of a lot of that, and I'm not sure it's good. So tell us from a historian's perspective, when do we need to start paying attention to history? Like the second it happens, or the day it happens, or week, or month, or year? I mean, in order to be worldly and wise and be a good citizen, how much attention should we pay to current events and history, the combination? Please discuss.
Well, I think that it's just you should be paying attention, but you should be paying attention to people who are wise and who you personally know. And so it's not that I don't follow or have social media accounts. I have Instagram, I have Twitter or X, and I have Facebook. And but the thing is, I only follow people who I know and who I trust, and I
Well,
happen.
so Professor, let me interrupt you on that because we both met Jonah Goldberg at the American Enterprise Institute.
Mhm.
And so I'm thrilled to follow Jonah. So I think that's really good advice. I happen to have run into, he was the speaker at an event I was at a long time ago, Chuck Todd. So I'll listen. I follow Chuck Todd, and I think actually he might respond if I were to reach out to him. I think I did that about a decade ago. So I kind of like that. But for the average citizen, and I guess I'm saying I'm not average, or neither are you. I don't know if that's overrated, but still, most people don't meet nationally and international reporters and stuff. So who are they supposed to follow? You and me? I mean,
Well, they should follow their local newspaper and journalists who they know personally. They should follow their local politicians who they hopefully know personally.
okay,
Uh,
I love that advice. Okay, we should just stop there and emphasize it. If they don't subscribe to a local paper or listen to the local radio station commentary or the local TV station uh, editorialists, they're making a mistake. If you want to be a good citizen, you need to pay attention to local.
yeah, absolutely. And I also would say if I mean anybody who's hearing this is capable of following all of us. I mean, we're not
Right.
unreachable and uh, very rarely. I do keep some things private, but for the most part, anything that I think is of public concern, I share publicly. And the other piece of it is you need to follow people who, if they don't know anything, keep their mouths shut. Because I think there is a tendency to believe that everyone should opine on everything.
We'll talk a little bit about that, Mr. Psychologist, Mr. Social Scientist. What is that human? And I get the coffee table. I mean, the water cooler talk. That actually is a human trait that I think is admirable. You grab your cup of coffee in the morning and you talk about the TV shows on last night or the football game, or and gosh, people talking about sports that they know nothing about is legendary. Every person does that. Quarterback, I would have done something, that coach, so that's actually healthy, isn't it? To have some opinions on a generic variety of things.
Sure. And often, this happens at Thanksgiving, right? Where you're talking to somebody and you don't know much about the subject and you're just trying to be polite and carry on your half of it
Yeah.
on a subject where somebody else is more interested than you are. So some of it's just politeness
Yeah.
that you want to participate. And then the other thing is the much stronger impulse that we have is confirmation bias, where we want to be right about our team, that we see ourselves as being part of a team or a tribe, and we seek the approval of other people in that team or tribe.
Okay, but boy, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but for some reason we always, I'm guilty of this, by the way, a lot. Meredith will maybe once a month kind of point out something. She goes, "Why do you say that? Do you think that's helpful to the person, or why do you, is it, and she's generally right, although I never want to just tell her, oh yeah, you're right, I'll change immediately. It's something I have to kind of adopt over years and then think it's my idea.
Mhm.
But why do people need to interject themselves into, if we are tribal, why do we need to interject ourselves into our own family members and be the troublemaker? And maybe it's just me, and bring up Trump at Thanksgiving.
Sure, there's a little bit of that. On the good version of it is that on a personal level, I always try to follow Calvin Coolidge's advice and cultivate the habits of the open mind. But on the other hand, if somebody is, um, you know, going down a specific path, and you would like a way of challenging them, Thomas Sowell, the economist, has the best three-question method, and these are three questions to ask that everyone should always be prepared to answer. And if they're not, then maybe they need to rethink their position, which is, compared to what, at what cost, and where's your evidence? And if you just, no matter what policy position anybody is taking, and this is good advice. If I always say this is good advice if you're an interviewer too. Um, John, you should be asking me this question sometimes
Yeah.
if I ever advocate for a policy position. Well, you say this is this way. What's the cost of what you're advocating? And if you can't tell me what the cost is, then we don't get to do it. Uh, you keep saying America is a racist country, but compared to what? Compared to the rest of the world? Well, no, it isn't. So I guess we don't get to say that anymore. Or where's your evidence? Which we should all be prepared to show our work or show our evidence, or at least point somebody in the direction of some scholarly, objective work behind our.
And do you mean this in casual, light conversation, the water cooler, or do you mean it when we're posting some treatise for a speech we're giving?
I mean, it's a habit of mine that I have, that I try to do for myself when I'm advocating something. I ask myself, do I have answers to these questions? But then I also think it's important that I always say studying history doesn't. You don't remember a lot of things, but it leaves you with a kind of a spidey sense. I I just read a few months ago a biography of Martin Van Buren, and it's long and it's detailed, and I don't remember very much about it. But what I have is that when somebody says something about Martin Van Buren that's wrong, something on the back of my neck starts to go, that doesn't sound like Martin Van Buren, And then I'll go look it up and I'll say, oh, that guy's wrong. And and so when I hear somebody say something that I think this person might be wrong. Um, I think the first level of questioning should be those three questions, just so that they don't start galloping down some pathway that eventually leads to gas chambers.
Right. Right.
So it's just sort of a habit of mine that I picked up from Thomas Sowell.
So, Professor, I think I'm going to try to remember to ask you some of that in a series of questions coming up shortly. Um, I had mixed feelings whether we should have this conversation today, and it's not a spidey sense; it's just a gut feeling. I kind of felt like if I didn't talk to you today, I'd regret it. And I don't know why. You're not my priest, you're not my psychologist, you're not my best friend. I mean, but you're a decent human being who I very much admire and respect and appreciate. I'm trying to model your Thanksgiving thing, by the way. I to tell people you love them. So, Professor Tootle, I love you, and it was weird internet.
Love
Facebook
you guys too. And you know, I've been thinking a lot just on completely off topic. Just I really appreciate Bart Miller. You know, he is somebody who I really come to value as a sounding board and a just I really value the insight of Bart, who doesn't speak very much on our podcast, but he is here. But wow, over the years, I've just really I want to make sure that Bart in particular understands how much I appreciate him.
So Professor Tootle,
let me Stephen.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Bart.
I was going to say thank you, Professor. I'm thankful for you as well.
Yeah. So sorry, I like you all. I love you all, but right. You know, but again, in keeping with my sort of like, I really want people to know how that I have these feelings for them.
So let me critique your congratulations and thanks of Bart. Every once in a while, I look through an old clipping file and I see Bart's name in my clipping file. And I go, oh, well, I didn't know he led the transition team. And I don't think it was the transition team for Centennial, but it was something like that. Or he ran the first election for the city after we created. And I go, so I've known Bart a long time. I always think of him as the lawyer for the legislature. But I forget he's also a neighbor and was part and active in the city of Centennial. I go, oh, Bart, man, he did that. That was cool. But to your point, Bart is not flamboyant and boisterous, and he doesn't take credit. He doesn't get out in front of the crowd and go, look at me, look at me, look at me. I've never known Bart to do that. And he was on city council. He's done a lot in his life. But he's demure is not a right word, but he's not meek. He has strong opinions, but he's not out there. So I critique Bart Miller in the world of me. Everybody's got to be focused on me. Bart's doing a lousy job of that.
Well, I see it exactly the opposite way. Those are exactly the kind of people who I seek out and value the most, because I think, I mean, I think about this a lot when it comes to my brother-in-law, my older sister's husband. But he's one of the wisest people I've ever known, but he's also extremely quiet. Mm-hmm. But over the course of my lifetime, I've learned to really trust him. And in some ways, he's the least flamboyant person maybe you'd ever meet. But boy, when I have a problem or a question or something, I'll sidle up to him and ask him a question, and often he won't say very much, but the few words he says, I will take to heart.
Okay, Bart, do you want to defend yourself again? Or are you comfortable with my critique of Professor Tootle's compliment?
I'm comfortable with your critique of Professor Tootle's compliment. Comment. I think that's just fine.
But you're so agreeable that, Bart, I could take that little comment that you just made and put it on replay 50 times over the last 75 shows. You're an agreeable, friendly person.
Yeah, no, and I get that. But, I just don't believe in being kind of the me kind of person. I just don't do that. I don't know. For some reason, it's not in my, not part of my MO.
Well, and you also don't want to go on the attack either. If you disagree with somebody, you're going to kind of him and haw and aw shucks almost. You're going to kind of go, well, I need to think about that a little bit. Or, you don't just go, you're wrong.
Right.
I'm not even sure you gently nudge. You just kind of let people have their opinion.
Sure, because I think everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I want to find out if my opinion is really correct or not. Yep. And I can't really do that if I'm just lashing out and attacking somebody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that.
All right.
Professor one of the Tootle, things about Bart that's true is he's a good listener. He may be the best listener on the show. And so whenever he does take time to speak, I know what he's about to say is thoughtful. It's not just going to be spontaneous off the top of his head. So that's what I
Well,
appreciate.
okay, I'm going to critique your compliment of Bart, Tony. His first reaction is going to be kindness. He's going to be, I appreciate what you said, or that's a good idea. And I mean, he's a really nice, kind guy. I'm not sure this is popular these days, Bart. People need to be tough. You're the problem with America, man. We need to be tough.
But I think what's wrong is that Bart is tough. That
Ah,
I just reject I think that what Bart is doing, that is the tough, strong position. That
compared to what?
definition of strength. Um,
Compared to what?
yeah, well, compared to someone who is a an ignorant bully, like it's easy to be an ignorant bully. That's the sign of
Yeah,
weakness.
Brackney.
Intellect, like slow intellectual rigor, like that, intellectual honesty, like that's the thing that requires strength.
Okay. All right. I'm going to accept your compliment of Bart. What is that? Concur, Mr. Attorney. Yeah, I concur. Or I just sign on to the majority opinion. I don't know. So anyway, thank you, Bart. And that's nice of you, Professor. He is worthy of knowing, and I'm glad he's part of our team. So I did want to pause because the part of this discussion we're on is Thanksgiving. And boy, you did that royally. So well done. But should we really be thankful? And I know everybody's split. I've got some family importance going
Yeah,
on, and
the answer is yes, we should be thankful.
we should be thankful. It doesn't matter
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter whether you're poor. It doesn't matter whether you're sick. It doesn't matter whether you're lonely. It doesn't matter whether the world's going to shit. Or I shouldn't say at least I don't like cursing online. The world
We could get us
has
a
tremendous
neighborhood.
problems.
Well, I think you should be, there are a lot of people who are certainly entitled to not be feeling gratitude um, at a particular moment. But generally speaking, most people in the United States should be feeling gratitude. You know,
Well, but Professor, I need to say, compared to what, there are a ton of folks out there, and I actually see some in my various professions and activities. I see some just a mile away from my home where you've been to several times. There is extreme poverty. I mean, I think that half of them are immigrants, probably a mile and a half from my home in kind of deplorable apartments. And I think many of them might be illegal. I'm not positive, but boy, they don't speak English.
but I bet if you were to poll them, they would all tell you how grateful they are to not be wherever they came from.
Well, that's probably true, but I think they're scared that they're going to be sent back to where they came from.
Yeah, probably also true. But
So how do they be thankful if you hardly have anything and you finally made it to America, and all of a sudden, yikes, you might be sent back to where you were from?
well, as somebody who rose from poverty to the middle class, I can tell you I was always grateful for every amount of progress and always fearful of backsliding. Those things never went away for me. I certainly can't speak for everybody, but it was, but I was always grateful and always fearful. I still am, because that's part of gratitude is to appreciate the good times because I think about that Facebook post that I reshared from a few years ago. That's because so many people I was close to had died in that year.
Yeah,
That's what had
yeah, I remember
prompted that
that.
initially, and and within my family, we've had so many challenges, so many trials, so many deaths, so many health scares that when everybody is happy and healthy and safe, that's when you sort of look around and say like, okay, let's appreciate this. Look at how good everybody's doing right now. Everybody's cancer is in remission. Everybody's medication is under control. Everyone's family situations are relatively good. That doesn't mean there aren't challenges, but that's why we have to experience the good times too. And I think age helps with that. And that's why getting older is such a blessing. Is you get every year it seems like I get a little more perspective on that.
Yeah, I mostly agree with everything you've said. I guess my family's a little more rough and tumble. I would add in, hey, who's in jail this year? Oh, hey,
Yeah. Well,
um,
we've had all that too, and some cases, troubled family members, and they don't they take it to the grave, um, and their addictions and their
yeah.
uh, criminal activity and struggles
Yeah.
uh, and
Well, so
sometimes
Professor, you know that I've had a pretty tough year with a close and extended family.
yeah,
And I know you don't know everything because you haven't visited recently, because I would have shared more if you were close by. Um, but it's been probably the toughest year of my life in cumulative,
yeah,
just
absolutely.
and so I ponder how to be grateful personally. And I have a house over, there's a roof over my head. Our hot water heater went out yesterday. So without any hot water to wash the dishes or take a shower, but the hot water heater fixer is coming in maybe during our conversation, there are a lot of things to be thankful for, but it's also been a really tough year. And, and now I want to transition a little bit. You can take some time to respond. Um, but everything my father taught me, everything the Boy Scouts taught me, everything the Episcopal Church taught me, everything in high school teachers, my soccer coach, who's joined us on this show sometimes, my mentor in college, law school professors, military, basic training, and officer course. My whole running for office and supporting people first, and then running office myself. I have this whole worldview of how we should engage with each other and how we should behave. And I like your style, by the way. And Arthur Brooks has this similar style, and Jonah writes on it some. You're in a good, rarefied air of quality people writing and thinking about how to be a good human. Um, but my whole worldview is that America's decent and America's thoughtful, and America will eventually do the right thing. I get the quote from, I think it was Churchill. But the bottom line is we're just not a rogue bully nation, me. We have structures, and sure, people sin and errs, and there's problems, and we sue each other, and we go to war. And I mean, there's all sorts of problems. But basically, the bedrock, the foundation of America is strong and interesting and filled with good people. And I've been questioning that in the last couple of years, maybe a decade or maybe longer. I don't, it's just like some of the things I thought were true are not, apparently, I guess. But then I think we overreach, and everybody goes, Americans aren't good people and America's not a good. And I think that's an overreach. I think that's kernels of truth. We've done bad things, but we're good people. There was a column, I'll send it to you it was by Andrew Sullivan. And I don't know if you saw that, but it was really about people, despite their sins and all their flaws and foibles and their oddities and their occasional lies to help support a friend, are good. They're decent. And so I'm struggling a little bit with where we need to be as citizens and how we engage with each other, how we get us back on course, because I think we're off course. And that bothers me enormously. I'm just really personally had some difficulties, and now I think America's having some difficulties. And I'm an optimist, and I know you don't use that word much, but I don't think you use that word much. I want to be positive, and I want to be grateful, and I want to help steer other people and myself to a better place. Anyway, I've talked a lot. You can jump on any of that stuff. I do have some specifics coming up. Thanksgiving, history professor, personal world. I don't know. Professor, give us some guidance the day after Thanksgiving.
So, I mean, on one hand, where you first started, I, I can't help but go back to questions of religion and faith, because at some time, and there will always be a time in everyone's life when you're just on your knees, yeah, and you think you can't go take it, you can't stand up and you can't take another step. Life will do that to all of us. And there were certainly times in my own life where I felt like the only thing I could do was get in the pool, swim laps, and recite the Lord's Prayer over and over again. And I would just try to, every time I said it in my head, emphasize a different word in each sentence in order to try to extract all the meaning I could out of it. And I would say that if you find yourself in one of those moments where you're on your knees and you can't seem to stand up or take another step, um, memorize the Lord's Prayer and start saying it to yourself, and you will find what you need there. Um, uh, and then um, I've in terms of hymns, I've always said that somewhere between "Be Thou My Vision" and "Amazing Grace" is about all I've got. So you'll find your answer. And "Be Thou My Vision," one of the things I've always appreciated about it is that it serves to focus your attention on trying to achieve. You're saying, I don't want to see the world through my eyes anymore. I've failed, and what I want is uh, I want to replace my view of the world with God's view of the world. Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with the Lord's Prayer, but the idea is that I am so fallen and I failed so spectacularly in my own life that what all I need to focus on is I need to focus on God, the fact that I have food, the fact that I need forgiveness, and so I should forgive others. I should appreciate every time when I just got lucky and I wasn't presented with an easier evil option that I took just out of luck, and that I shouldn't want my kingdom or my view of the world to supersede the truth, and that what I should want is for what is true and eternal and beautiful, that what I should want is for that to transcend any desires that I have on my own. Um, so that's sort of step one for when you're really on your knees and can't make it, think you can't move another step. But then the
And by the way, that's lovely. Thank you. That was a really nice little summation, a couple paragraphs there. That was great, Professor. Thank you.
Well, I have to, credit our research team. I think that was Anthony, our producer, uh, put it in the notes. And then the other thing is, I think about some of my former students who had their own struggles and said that what the study of history gave to them was that they could start to assemble their own forefathers and take the wisdom of others and apply it to their own lives. And I know I've mentioned James Weldon Johnson many times before, but you think about what it must have been like to be a black man in the United States in the late 19th century. Um, and one of the most important things that he said was he was focused so much on the question of identity, who am I? What do I accept from the world around me, and what do I reject? And I've always found so much wisdom in simply not taking on the evils of others. And when somebody else does not have my best interests at heart, why would I let them define who I am? Really take, figure out who you are and what you believe, and fight against the temptation, as Bart said, to become a reactionary. That because once you're a reactionary, you're letting others define who you are. and that's maybe the worst thing you can do as a human being. So I always start with rejecting the premise that I have to react, because I don't know, as Bart says, somebody's entitled to their own opinion, but they don't get to say, they don't get to put words in my mouth, and when the conversation starts to go to, and you believe that too, then you have to have the internal strength to say, no, that's not what I believe at all. Don't drag me into your fantasy.
Professor, I think this is really sound advice, but I got to interrupt you, and you may not know this answer, but you have brought up James Weldon Johnson a dozen times over the last 5 years. And where do you think he got his internal strength and dedication stubbornness, steadfastness? I mean, he was like ruthlessly steadfast to his principles. That's just not easy stuff. What's your guess on where he got that fortitude?
I don't know. I mean, he's just he just had an extraordinary and beautiful mind. I don't know. There are just certain people you're attracted, at least for me. Like I get it, I'm weird, but I'm just so attracted to their habits of thought. And when I was maybe a freshman in college, I read his novel Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, and I loved it. I assigned it for years, even though it's a work of fiction. I used to assign it in my intro level classes just because I love the book so much.
I don't think I own that one, and you've never made that your top priority of recommendations. But if I go to a paperback bookstore, I should buy that and read it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a good book. It's a fun read. You'll have fun over Christmas. I'm sure it's still in print. It's just called Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man.
Yeah.
Great book. And and there are just certain people that when you start studying them, you're gratified. Eisenhower was that way for me. Coolidge is that way for me. James Weldon Johnson. I don't know why. I'm not sure what it is about those people in particular that when the more you read them, the more you like them. At least for me.
Okay, Professor, let me interrupt the whole conversation with a zinger. And I won't do this well because this is your skill set, not mine. But they're all Christian. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yeah. So you have an affinity. So compared to what? And I actually want to take a real world example just to kind of go down this because it's been bothering me. And you've talked about this in the shows before too. You've got is he an insane person? Is he a spy? Is he a ruthless murderer? Yes, it's a ruthless murder. But the person who killed the female National Guardsman and maybe the other one who's in critical condition, it's got me upset, as you might imagine, because I enlisted in the Guard intentionally, and I wanted to actually be in the situation. Kent State was about 10% of the reason I joined the Guard. I wanted to be in that situation where I might decide to shoot or not shoot or violate an order. So this last week has been a big week for me. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden one gets assassinated by an Afghan. God, but I have friends, real friends in the National Guard who are in Afghanistan and Iraq who are loyal to these Afghanis, bringing them back because they helped us. And all of a sudden now we're not going to have any Afghanis or any foreign nationals because somebody came from Washington to Washington and killed a guardsman. And this whole week has been pretty upsetting to me. And I haven't just wagged on Facebook a lot about it because I'm trying to be reflective on it. But they're not, he's not a Christian, and neither are the Afghanis, and neither are most of these foreign nationals. I guess the Mexicans and Latin Americans are Christians. But a lot of these folks that really want to come to America, they're not Christian. So talk to me about what's a core value of America. And are we reacting wisely on all sides of the debate when we're thinking about these issues of life and death? What guides us? You've given us the Bible, thank you. But does it have to be the Bible?
No.
What do you mean? No.
Well, I mean, here's the difficult part. Uh, as a Christian, I'm supposed to say yes.
That's what I'm asking.
And I do think that for me and I do believe for everyone that you should love Jesus Christ and his teachings. I proclaim that boldly, but I try to also do it with humility. Um, but I would also say that I try to be respectful of the journeys of others, and hopefully everybody is. And I say that what I want for everybody is for them to be on a spiritual journey, but it is certainly not a requirement for the functioning of America. And I think Washington's letter to a Jewish congregation, which I think we brought up a few episodes
Yeah.
ago,
I haven't
uh,
read that, but you've brought it up. Yeah.
yeah, that it really does indicate that there are um, civil beliefs, civic beliefs um, that you don't that are certainly rooted in the Judeo-Christian tradition, and I would never deny that. Um, but uh, there are a body of ideals behind the civic traditions of America. One need not be a Christian in order to be a good American. Uh, and
Is it a controversial statement, Professor? I can't tell.
is that controversial? I certainly
Yeah.
hope. I don't know. It's a question I get that I used to get asked a lot. Frankly, I think it's more disturbing that my students never ask me this anymore. But students used to ask me, was America founded as a Christian nation? And my answer is no. It was a nation founded by Christians, certainly, mostly. But so many different Christian denominations that the founding ideal of America is religious tolerance. That's where we get our that's really the origin of the First Amendment is the right of conscience, the right to disagree with one another, because of the religious diversity of the United States, and it's what all other forms of tolerance were based upon. One of the things that I do spend a lot of time um, talking about in my classes is when people are trying to advance civil rights in America, one of the most effective ways of doing that was coupling um, tolerance of religion with tolerance of other ethnicities. And many presidents did it consciously. Lincoln did this, Theodore Roosevelt to a lesser extent, but Coolidge did it, and certainly Eisenhower. And you really see it the strongest with Lincoln and Eisenhower, because Eisenhower is really copying what Lincoln did. Which one of the things if you look at the civil rights statements of Dwight Eisenhower, almost every time he mentioned race, he mentioned religion in order to try to build on the tolerance that Americans already took pride in order to say, well, take the next step. And I'm not asking you to become a Baptist. I'm just saying you already are fine with the idea that a Baptist gets to worship in another church. So you should be fine with some ethnicity also experiencing their rights in civic life.
Where did MLK Jr., the Reverend, where did he get most of that similar philosophy?
Well, from deep reading of not just the religious traditions of America, but also a few other theologians. Reinhold Niebuhr was. I don't want to go too deep on some of these people, but one of the most important sort of theologian intellectuals within the liberal American tradition was Reinhold Niebuhr, and of course he was influenced by Gandhi somewhat. But then you just can't escape the deeper religious traditions and not just religious traditions, the intellectual traditions within the Southern black churches, which he had come up in, and of which James Weldon Johnson was a part of that tradition as well. I mean, there was such a rich intellectual life of people who were uh, who were trying to figure out how to exercise their American rights, and Black Americans were a big part of that. That's why. I mean, I'm working on an article, a short article right now on John Quincy Adams and the gag rule, and just trying to trace his understanding of Black rights through his own life and who he was reading over the years. Because if you're trying to figure out how rights work together with law and practice, and uh, you're trying to make sense of these different pieces, trying to make them all work together. But the existence of slavery out there um, always had to be factored in, because you had this hangover from the old world, slavery that was still causing these social, political, and uh, you know, I don't know what you call it, but real life evil that was ever present. So no matter what your political philosophy was, you always had to kind of factor that in somehow, and figure out, where does this fit into my worldview? Um, and eh, there's a rich body of work out there that, I've been studying this for years, and I've only scratched the surface of, but it's all there. Like, I can spend the afternoon with my head in books and articles and speeches and letters, and it's all there.
So Professor, I interject again. The person who's just trying to make a go of the world, they work 9 to 5, or maybe they work nights or weekends, or maybe they work 3 jobs because they don't have benefits in one of the jobs and they have to earn extra money to somehow pay for healthcare. There's a lot of people out there that have to work pretty hard to make a go of it. Do they need to read all these books that you need to read? Do they need to subscribe to the
No.
newspapers? I mean, do they need to? How do they incorporate good citizenship when they don't have necessarily the time, the money, the subscriptions, maybe even the interest and desire? Can you just give some generalized Thanksgiving advice for people who want to be good citizens, the average American?
Well, when somebody says they don't have the time, I usually ask to see their phone usage from the previous week,
Well,
because
you have Sudoku or some weird
I
meme,
know, but I
you
just,
gotta relax, Professor.
again, uh, I'm so used to dealing with my students saying how busy they are, and then I say, okay, well, let me see your phone usage over the past week, and then they're like, no, because they're averaging 13 hours or 14 hours of staring at their phones, and so I don't believe that you don't have a half hour every night to, read a biography of, or that you don't have a half hour every night to read, period.
No
And
matter where you are in life, no matter how poor or how hungry or
at a
how
library, I mean, my friends and I were talking about this actually at coffee 2 days ago, because we were all so poor at one point in our lives, but we all had a love of reading, and one of the best things in the world, it was that, the you got a library, with a library card, and and the whole world is available to you, if from your local public library. So
and now you can download it on your phone from most libraries and have it read to you. Or that's an interesting point. I don't take advantage of that as much as I should. Okay, Professor, I've got a couple more specifics, and then we're going to go to Q&A. We do have 2 newcomers on board. We are going to go to Q&A here shortly. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them in about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, Professor, talk to me about.
Question for you, John. You said you have a lot of feelings about. Are you prepared to talk about any of things that you went through with the killing of or the attack on the National Guard troops and now killing of one of them?
I don't think so yet, because I'm telling you, I know guardsmen. I used to be on the traveling team in the logistics, and then I used to command. I was a commander at 240 folks. I've traveled internationally with them. I've done med readies overseas. I've done international diplomacy. So I've been at like the lowest level private and a company commander. I was a commander, and it's not that over 12 years you become the expert in National Guard overall, but I have friends too, and some of my friends, a 1-star general, a 2-star general, a colonel that went to Iraq and Afghanistan twice. I have several reverends, both in the Air Force and Army, that are dear friends of mine who are National Guardsmen who did 30 years. So I guess, like overall, I'm probably a 0.1 percenter. Out of 1,000 Americans, I probably 0.1 percenter expertise. And so I have all these mixed feelings, man. I'm telling you, guardsmen are good people. They're just normal human beings like the rest of us. They just really are. There's some tough, tough people. And there's some kind of scary people. And there's some kind of deplorable people and some kind of loyal, patriotic people. And they're just the whole mix. I love guardsmen. I mean, they're just the hoi polloi of American citizens. And I just really do not like them being deployed in American cities. A 1-star general, the former commander of the Army National Guard, and I met this week and talked about it, and he didn't like it. He's 80 years old now, and he has 3 Distinguished Flying Crosses and 1 Silver Star and 2 Silver Star, 1 Bronze. I mean, this guy is a really decorated guy, 30 years in the active duty military, and then he became the commander of the Army National Guard. He is a subject matter expert, and he's really concerned about the Guard being deployed to American cities. And then all of a sudden a guardsman gets killed by so the whole thing, no, I'm not ready to talk about it because I don't know, Professor. I don't like where we are at right now as a country with military but I don't like the mask. I'm a cop guy. My uncle was a cop. I'm a sheriff's deputy guy. I mean, if you want to put me in like a tribe, military, cops, CIA, NSA, all those people, that's my tribe. And I'm not happy right now because I want respect to everyone. I want them to serve with dignity, and I want to be appreciated. When you call a cop, you want them to show up, whether it's a bicycle or a domestic violence you want help. When you call a cop, you should get help, and you're stranded on the side of the road. Thank God, a sheriff's deputy, somebody with lights, is to make sure I don't get killed on the side of the highway. And right now I'm frustrated. I don't think the masked customs patrol, the border patrol or ICE, I don't think that's good for the profession. And so I am trying to strategically think how I can be most effective as a citizen over the next few years by having people love law enforcement like I do. But also, if you don't like something that's going on, how to be an effective change agent. I don't know. And then this poor soldier that got killed, and maybe the other one's going to die too. Oh my God, was she even trained? I mean, you're put in I know she's from the area, but it doesn't sound to me like she was trained. I at least had some training if I would have been deployed to an American city, and hopefully some wisdom not to just shoot some neighbor of mine because some idiot said shoot, but also how to protect your own troops. I'm not sure she was trained. I have so many damn questions. I'm not ready to talk about it. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right. I don't know. I'm pretty stressed out this week over this stuff, and I'm trying to be thankful, but I also think that we need a course correction, and how to do that without being a reactionary. How to do that by inspiring people to be thoughtful rather than just like mad and violent, and so those are the things I'm trying to think through. If you have any wisdom, feel free to share it. Otherwise, we'll go to the next topic.
I would just say build from your first principles and just always keep returning to your first principles and you'll be fine.
Yeah, well, I think that's wise, and that's what I'm trying to do. Professor, we may be going to war this weekend, maybe today. Can you just give some reflections on that? Is that good for our society? Are we doing it in the right way? Or maybe we're
I,
not going to war. Maybe we're just blowing up some narco terrorists. Can you give some reflection on that?
well, I don't think we're going to go to war, but if
I
we
don't
did,
know. Did you hear his speech yesterday? The president gave a speech yesterday. We're going to go land. We're going to take land. That's war, isn't it?
I, I have no idea. I mean, I don't. I don't listen to what.
The president says.
Yeah, I mean, uh, he's not a very smart person with low character. I don't. But he has a tremendous amount of power. So it's well. Here's a Charles Portis line from the book True Grit. Um, the world as it is. What is it? I don't I don't have time for hypotheticals. The world is vexing as it is. Um,
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, Professor, first principles. I know you and I differ on this a little bit, but to me, it's clear in the Constitution, Congress has the power to declare war. So, whenever conceivably possible, I get the emergencies, and there's lots of room for emergencies. But this isn't an emergency. There's lots of, I mean, we've been forecasting this for months now. If you want to go to war against some country, just have Congress debate it. Now, I know there's debate, they might disagree. Well, then maybe we should be a little more cautious about going to war. If the American people, through their representatives, don't want to go to war, maybe we should be a little more cautious. Those are some of my first principles. Now, maybe that makes me seem like a pacifist or a anti-war person. No, actually, I'm pretty hawkish. I just think we should go in with a full force and measure of the American people behind our fighting warriors. Um, and so I'm nervous about this too. Should I be? You're saying don't be nervous. It's just some bombing and some narco terrorists, maybe.
oh, you
Or
should be concerned about the bombing. You should be concerned about what's being said, um, um, but yes, I agree. If you want to go to war, we should have a debate in Congress, and Congress should declare war. Otherwise, no, don't do it.
okay, so maybe we're closer than I thought. Okay, Professor, let's go to Q&A here. But before, let me have you wrap up my meandering spirit this week. I want to be thankful, personally and professionally and societally and as a citizen. And I am for that, for the most part. I've also pledged publicly for the next month, I plan on being grateful and loving and forgiving and please help me. I put that out to my friends. Please help me be that way. I don't want to just be reactionary. I don't want to be mad all the time. I really don't. I just don't know if I have the strength to be mad all the time. But I also want to be very aware. I want to be the best citizen I've ever been. In my 59 years, if I survive through my 60s, I'd like my 60s to be the best years of citizenship that all those things I told you before, Boy Scouts and church and law school and all military, all those things wrapped up together. I want to be really effective my next decade. And you're helping me do all that, by the way. Thank you. But tell me, thankful, optimistic, pessimistic, give me some guidance and anyone else that listens to the show, what we should be doing, and then we'll open it up to Q&A.
Well, there was an episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns was.
Simpsons. You're going to go back to The Simpsons from that?
One of my friends in college used to always quote, I think it was Mr. Burns when he would do his breathing exercises, out with the jive and in with the love. And what you,
Mr. Burns?
well, if the Lord's Prayer doesn't do it for you, then how about The Simpsons? Yeah, just out with the jive and in with the love. Uh, Try to be intentional with what you put into your own head, and
That's perfect.
and where your mind is pointed. If if you find yourself overwhelmed with the negativity of the world, pick up a book by someone who is wise, um, and spend some time in their headspace. Another good one for this, by the way, I would say is Marilyn Robinson. If I'm
Never heard of Marilyn Robbins.
She wrote a book called Housekeeping, but she's also a great essayist. Uh, and she also has a really beautiful mind. And I would say if you want to spend some time, um, if
Is
there's
she a historian? You've never
no,
given a
no, she's
novel.
no. Well, in some ways, she's an amateur historian. She's one of the most brilliant live. I think she might be in my sort of top 10 most brilliant people who were alive at the same time I was alive.
Huh.
Uh, she is absolutely one of the smartest people. Is that TB? Is that Tom Brasino who just is watching in his car? We should
That's
let,
funny. I didn't know that was Tom.
yeah, we should let Tom, I bet he's one of the wisest people I know.
Well, especially since if he's, I can't remember when he signed on, but I've got all these military things, and gosh, we've abused him too much by coming on our show. But if he's here, maybe he can give a former guardsman some
well,
wisdom.
Tom is also one of the smartest people I know in terms of expressing gratitude uh, and understanding the role of gratitude in your thought. So, in terms of who has influenced me in my own life, it's in many cases it's long conversations with Professor Brasino about the role of gratitude. And I mean, I remember us talking about this 30 years ago that gratitude had to be a core value in what was shaping us. So this is not
I
something.
don't know why he drove into work, and now it looks like he's in the office on a day after Thanksgiving. But Tom or Professor Brusino, if you're able to take over the show for a couple minutes and give some guidance or wisdom, Professor Tootle's handing it off to you if you're able.
You got to take yourself off mute though first. Or
Yeah, he's going to figure that out from his phone.
or can we unmute him?
Oh, yeah, I might be able to do that.
There, he's on for
Trying to
you.
give it permission. Did it work?
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
So no, I was actually at wrestling practice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Some junior high girls and stuff. So no, it's good. I was hearing your thing. Like, okay, so two bits on this. So I'll give you my two things in response because I just got in a little bit later. So, in our world, so I've been studying a lot about because I'm going to do a talk at my work a little bit later about the pre-World War One American-German antagonism. So like an ongoing like disputes they had. And so you kind of find, and funny enough, the whole school is going to be studying Venezuela when the Germans tried to, when the Germans and the Brits did a blockade against Venezuela, and the Americans sent the fleet down there to try to drive them away, and Teddy Roosevelt negotiated arbitration. Anyway, point being, this is nothing new. These aren't quite like the wartime activities. It's the sort of the military. It's like military diplomacy. I think it's so it's kind of normal stuff, and one of our good things is that there's always people opposing these things, and we fight them out and we debate them. And I think it's like just easier to understand President Trump if you just realize that like his style is to say everything like everything at 11, like I'm going to say everything at 11 and then, he's aiming for 6 and the result, like, it's his style. It's annoying. It can be boisterous. It can cause people to worry about it and panic. If you just kind of if you get out of the news cycle, you'll be amazed how many of these things that pass very quickly that are, this is the end of the republic, and then they just disappear. So there's always that, like, say, like this, and I brought this up here before, the wisdom of Keith Tootle. If you ignore your problems, they usually go away.
That was my dad quoting Calvin Coolidge. Yeah.
Yeah. So like in the so if you ignore your problems, they usually go away, which I like. When Steven told me that, I was furious. And then I realized it's like one of the smartest things I've ever.
I think Sam on Cheers also said it.
Yeah, so it's a good one, like it, and it's true, like especially in this, like in our super fast news cycles, and people trying to throw things and see if they can get some sort of political advantage with whatever crisis of the second is, of this 10 seconds is, like, and like anything that sticks, they make a bigger deal about it. If it seems to stick for a little bit, they'll make a bigger deal out of it. But like, there's a million things that happen, every day that we lose our mind about, and then like they kind of disappear. It's sort of good, like historians, like chances are, very good chances are that when a historian in 30 years writes like a detailed history of the Trump years, like whatever happened today that we're furious about won't make it in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's sort of a good way to kind of think about it. So like, so this will allow you to not be as like reactionary to the stuff and just go, hey, I'm only going to like devote my energy to the stuff that really, really matters. Which, so it's like kind of take a deep breath and do the,
Well,
I
so
kind of like, so my version of the out with the jive, in with the love, or was that what it was? Out with the jive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the
in with the
jive.
love.
Love. Yeah.
Yeah. So
well,
I
so
do the, uh, well, I'll just give you like my sort of like my version of that is, it's a very Catholic one, but it's, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Like this is my sort of, that's my meditation breathing. Breathe out with a say it, and then, remember this sort of like, kind of reorients me on like, hey, I got enough issues that I'm trying to get right with God myself that,
Hmm.
it's like too easy to like point at other people who are having their issues. I don't know if everyone asked about that. I was just gonna say something about Thanksgiving and the kind of, the gratitude orientation. I remind my students, it's really neat, and I sometimes forget to do this, but I have a colleague who's really good at it, is that we have students and, even at the Army War College, grown people, Americans who don't know, but we also have international students. And it's like really great to talk to them about Thanksgiving because it's, besides the 4th of July and maybe even more than the 4th of July, it's the most American holiday. Like, it's a uniquely American holiday. And I remind people that we tend to teach it to everybody that it's like about the Pilgrims and their whole story. And we do the little kids make construction paper. I don't know if they still do this, make little construction paper hats and feathers and do the whole thing. But it really, the holiday itself comes from the Civil War. And it's Sarah Hale makes this note to Abraham Lincoln and it becomes he says, yeah, this is a good idea, which is like a useful thing for us because it's this reminder that our gratitude, the orientation towards gratitude is something we do when we're suffering. Like it has its greatest effect on you when you do it when you're suffering. Is that you offer this back up and you're oriented towards gratitude in these dark times. And this is the way out of those dark times, is to see sort of meaning and purpose in them. So like we should always and it's like, what a great American, we don't call it like a day of humiliation. Like some other societies, China and stuff do this like days of humiliation. Americans don't like generally do this. We have like, when we were kind of like suffering, we said like, it's a day of gratitude. We have Thanksgiving. I think that's if they could be grateful in the Civil War, then we could be grateful right now. Right. Like,
Right.
so that's a pretty good
Yeah.
thing. Pretty good way to sort of orient on it. So those would be my 2 bits of stuff, but I don't want to over your thing.
no,
So.
Professor, that was extraordinary. And I don't know if you heard the half hour of Professor Tootle's thoughts on Thanksgiving before. I don't know if you've been here the whole show or signed on late, but I do have a hardball question for you, and I'd like you to punt if you'd like, because I do want to be respectful to your position at the Army War College, because I don't want to get you fired. So just punt. But how do I think you heard my part of being loyal to the military and loyal to the police and loyal to I don't know, anybody that's here to help, to protect and serve. I'm loyal to those folks. And I have this dissonance in my head because I don't know, maybe Afghanis are scary and I don't speak their language and they're over here and I hear the president and he says, no, we're stopping all of this. They all have to be gone now. Now, to your point, I think that was wise. Well, that's what he's saying today and what's going to happen. Let's just be patient. And that's really great advice. But how does a good citizen treat other humans when we don't know? I don't know if they're trustworthy. I don't know if they've been vetted. I see them, and so will you just give some advice? Because the whole damn thing is disconcerting to me. I don't like it when National Guardsmen are killed in DC. I'm really pissed off. So give some words of wisdom, if you don't mind, on this Thanksgiving week.
I think this goes to this, point of this has always been like, these sorts of things are always going on, by a degree. There's always something going on, right? There's always like, there's some police that have some excesses. There's always like a story somewhere. I kind of like, actually, it relates to the other point. I follow another bit of advice when it came to problems is sort of, concentric circle starting at my own desk. I dedicate my time onto the things that I can affect. Right. So, like I just came from a wrestling practice. The girls, like, the girls that I coach, junior high girls and high school girls that we coach, like I'm far more interested. And I think it's like, proper, like sort of first principles, like, they're called first principles because you want a reminder that we want them in the proper order of things. And, we want to have well-ordered lives. And I think that the proper order is, around your family, your local community, the sort of subsidiarity kind of view of things. And I only will, I accept that there's things that like my role in it is so indirect that I'm going to use it when it's necessary. So like I'll focus on how can I help, this kid who's struggling. I just talked to a young kid and, it's her second year wrestling. She's trying to get better. And I'm like, hey, you're like right on path. I know you're not having the same kind of success. And like, it's the kind of, it's like, what does she need right now? What is that person, right? That's near me that I can help. How can I help them right now? I'll save I'll consider the National Guard being deployed to American cities among 40 other issues the next time I go into a voting booth.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a
it's
Theodore
in someone's case
Roosevelt.
like
I was just going to say the Theodore Roosevelt thing of I care about the man who takes the next step, not the one who theorizes about the 200th step.
yeah, right. Like it's a perfect like kind of example of it. Now there might be cases where there's like an additional, you might feel like you have an additional responsibility, and it's like how can I be, if I write something, that's for broader consumption, or we participate in something like this, a podcast, like what are what's the sort of, if I want to write something, it's like how prudent about it can I be about it? What is the best way I can affect it that way? I'm not looking for, I'm not looking for it to go viral or to have lots of hits, to have lots of views. Like I'd be happy if the 6 people walked away and felt a little bit better about it. And that's the kind of like view of it that I would have. And, so it's always this, I can't do much about that. Um, very, very indirectly. So like, I mean, like Stephen said it right. First step, the
All
step
right,
that's in front of me, the one to take.
one more line, gentlemen, and Professor. I think you need to be careful on this one. So maybe you just demur, but Professor Tootle can answer this. The astronaut. I don't know him. I've never met him. The Senator Kelly. Wait, he should be investigated over his comments. You teach this stuff, I assume, at the Army War College, but you should probably be quiet because I don't want you to have the FBI after you or the president after you. But Professor Tootle, you don't mind being investigated. What is this a big deal or
For
no?
the record, I don't want anybody investigating me.
I
Nobody
know, I
does.
know.
But I just want to build on something that Tom just said, which is that, and this is something I learned from Eisenhower and Lincoln, which is this principle of like, is this, and I talk about this a lot with my best friend too. Is this the room full of people who want to achieve the social change, or is this the room full of people who want to pretend to achieve social change? Because if what you'd like to do is pretend to achieve the social change, by all means, go out and say a bunch of hateful stuff that feels good to you and be a reactionary, and it's going to feel great, and you can pat yourself on the back. But if what you would like to do is to actually achieve the social change, then what you need to do is you need to convince people who have a better angel somewhere deep in their nature, and you need to convince them to take the next step towards becoming a better version of themselves.
Gosh, I love this whole conversation.
And,
Professor Brusino,
and
I
then,
assume you concur.
So I treat political theater with an emphasis on the latter, which is that it's for my sort of like entertainment to see how it turns out. Um, so yeah, I'll be kind of interested to see like if I think I'm not sure that like I think that we should stop with the overheated rhetoric all around. If it doesn't seem to be like, if one side or the other, like, unfortunately, the sort of place we're in right now is if one side or the other says something overheated, then like the unfortunate thing is like if the other side says something like tries to take a more reasonable position, it seems to be that makes the people who are saying the overheated stuff be more overheated instead of less. Like they're not like working towards the compromise. So like right now we seem to be in a space where like, let's see if like we can get balance out of overheated versus overheated. And I think that that's where this will go. So like, I think there might be kind of an interesting principle on this, which and I've actually seen this like pretty good. It's like, hey, he could be called back into service and subject to Uniform Code of Military Justice, and what he said. And then we go, well, no, you can't actually, you can't actually in this case. All right, well, that's good. That's good. Well, now we found a good like sort of compromise. Here's what you're allowed to do. Here's what you're not allowed to do. But at a minimum, it's like, hey, maybe it's not prudent to like to use your position to say an overheated thing like disobey orders, right? And then it's also not prudent for you to say in response to that an overheated thing like let's throw them in jail. And so we end up with kind of like, oh, now we actually know what the limitations are on everybody's powers and our checks and balances are working, and that's a good thing. I kind of feel the same way about a lot of the stuff that like the administration tries, if the judges stop it, it's like, hey, even if it's something I like, the judges stop it, Supreme Court upholds it or refuses to ignore it or refuses to take a look at it. Okay, well, that's a limitation. Now we're
And
where we need to be.
Works then. Yeah, but it takes time. We don't all have to react to everything all the time.
Right.
Everything all the time. We just don't have to do that.
It's like seems like for all the like I've heard that the Republic is ending like a lot in the last like 9 months or whatever.
Right.
It seems like we're still going, and like a lot of cases, like it kind of like turned into a pretty boring story, and it ended up on page 15 instead of page 1, and how it played out in its case. But we kind of forget that because we're onto the new overheated thing.
Yeah.
So like I kind of feel like it's kind of like theater, and I'm like interested to see how it turns out. Like this is kind of entertaining in its stupid way. So
okay,
that's kind of like my answer.
Some nice wisdom for Thanksgiving week on controversial issues of the day. Thank you. Jonathan Narcisco, you are a complete stranger to me. Since you're a stranger, you get the first bite at the apple if you have any questions or comments to Professor Tootle. Take yourself off mic or put yourself on video, or just stay the way you are if you don't have anything. And it looks like you're okay. Okay, Jonathan, you're up.
I don't have anything. I just enjoy the show. I like to absorb a little bit of knowledge here and there.
Great. Appreciate you joining us.
Good to see you, Mr. Tootle.
Oh, you guys know each other. Okay.
He's one of my former students. One of the best human beings you'd ever want to meet. Like, great guy.
Well, then he's welcome back. Okay, cool. Jeff Dugdale. Part of the reason I wanted to do this show today was because of you.
Uh-oh.
I know, but you're a deep thinker and you're concerned about America. I've tried to outline personal and societal and big picture and give a couple things to hang handholds on to ask Professor Tootle things. Do you have similar notions to me, or do you have a different tangent? Are you concerned about other things? How are you trying to be a good citizen? Ask a question of Professor Tootle or a comment, or if you don't have any, we're going to go to the wise one, Bart.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of Bart's time, but as with every one of these calls, I'm scribbling as fast as I can because there's so much wisdom and things that I can look back on. But I'd share two things that in the past have been similar. Little things that seem very straightforward and yeah, of course, but they've been really powerful. One in which I have taught all my kids, and I hope that they'll carry it with them. And that was the concept of responsibility. Take responsibility. And we tell our kids, take responsibility for things. But this class that I was taking said responsibility is the ability to choose your response. And that's kind of what you guys are talking about. You don't have to react. Professor Tootle said this. I have to decide each time whether I'm not going to actually let that into my head. And the more you practice it, I think some people call it mindfulness, but the more you practice it, you realize nobody gets to make me feel anyway. Nobody gets to do anything to me. I do everything to myself based on the inputs I'm getting. And so that's, I think, a simpler way to say some of the things. The other thing I'd share, and Professor Tootle, this is going to resonate with you if you haven't already read it, but Neil Peart was the drummer for Rush for many years, and he's a famous motorcyclist, and he wrote a number of books. The one that I was most interested in reading was the one that he wrote directly after he lost his wife and his daughter. Have you read them, Professor Tootle?
No.
Yeah. So he lost both his wife and his daughter within the course of 6 months. And so he was just in the deepest depression. And it was a story of his motorcycle ride that he took to try to deal with it. And this kind of goes back to what you guys were talking about. How do you be grateful for things? And he said, one of the things that I carried was that which cannot be changed must be endured. And it sounds straightforward and well, yeah, of course, but the more you think about it, the more it is. You really start by asking yourself, can I change this? And um, we were talking about, do I really have any influence? The professor talking about teaching his wrestling students. Do I really have any influence here? And if not, and that's true of national politics, I really don't have much of a ability to change things, so I must endure them. And then you apply the corollary. If I can't endure it, I have to change it. And I think those two things have been really powerful in kind of guiding me through this. And my wife is somebody who practices gratitude and has taught my kids gratitude. So she's still working on me.
Well, I think it's funny, not funny, but one of the most important books in my life was Cash by Johnny Cash in terms of my faith journey and how I see the world. And so I have a corollary in my own life, but it wasn't Neil Peart. It was Johnny Cash. And for much the same reason is in Cash, Johnny Cash spends a lot of time just sort of contemplating the meaning of his own life and his own faith. So another book recommendation. But yeah, I agree. I'm not a huge Rush fan, so
You don't have to be.
probably
You're
would
a
have.
you're a
Yeah, yeah,
motorcycle fan.
yeah. But I certainly identify with everything you said.
Nice. Okay. At the risk of being controversial for a few minutes, Tony, you've got a lot going on, baby. This is your chance to jump in and ask a question or a comment of Professor Tootle.
Yeah. I'm grateful always for Tootle Talks and the team around it. So that's one of the first things I want to say. I've
Heck
had
yeah.
a rough 90 days. And I guess more than anything, staying focused on being grateful. It's easy for me to identify the things that aren't working. But the things that are working are the things that I'm grateful for, that we have an opportunity to have a dialogue about those things. And I think it's tragic, John. I'm sorry to hear that you've been struggling with what you've been struggling with. It raised a big spike in me because 8 years ago, I took on a family from Afghanistan and helped them work their way through the citizenship process. And I'm glad to know that they won't be at risk to be deported because they're citizens. And they were actually doing interpretation for us in Kabul. And so I mean, I have a lot of feelings about what happened, and I'm worried for sure, about what's happening in this world. But I think that we need to just keep in dialogue, and we need to keep affecting those things that we can affect. Like right now, the only thing I can affect is this cat on my shoulder. So that's really all I'm going to spend my time affecting. And then the next thing will come up, and I'll take that on.
Another thing I've got for you, Tony, is as a Kansas City fan, I don't know if you've ever heard any interviews with Christian Okoye, who, even though I'm not a Kansas City fan, I was a huge Christian Okoye fan, the Nigerian Nightmare, and he's still what I think of as almost the perfect human physical specimen. Christian Okoye at his peak was like an almost perfect human being. But I've heard him do a couple of long form interviews over the years, and he's also somebody worth listening to. So, any other Kansas City fans out there, go and do yourselves a favor and study some Christian Okoye.
I'm
Yeah,
not. I would put this Christian Okoye up against my Army basic training drill sergeant, who had the strongest, toughest body I've ever. I have daydreams and nightmares about this damn guy. So I know one's a pro athlete. It sounds like this other guy. I'd put up my drill sergeant against this guy.
Well, and
yeah,
I'm not a Lions fan, but I do quote Barry Sanders a lot to my kids because I think he is also somebody with a lot of wisdom.
Yeah, the other thing that I want to say is to Tom is that during my high school years, I was never the strongest I've ever been as I was when I wrestled, man. When I wrestled, I was like 1% body fat. And I love wrestling because it's you, there's no question about it's you on that other person. So I really appreciate that you're cultivating that in young people and especially young women.
Yeah, and Professor Brasino, you've got a wrestler in your family, don't you?
My godson. Too, and I mean, she's not my goddaughter, but his daughter also wrestlers out there for Adam State. So,
Oh, Adam State, that's right.
Yeah, my daughter's at Adam State. She's wrestling, so she's on her way back down to school. Actually, they're both on their way back down to school. One's at the Naval Academy, wrestling there, and the other one's wrestling at Adam State. Yeah, I was just showing you, like, you guys talking about sort of outside books. So we kind of talk about it's not just the sort of how you affect or what you affect, what you can affect. It's also the how you do it. And so I put up that book. So Joe Ehrman, I tell the guys, my buddies all the time.
Professor Brasino, I know you held it up, but what was it for just audio listeners?
It's called Inside Out Coaching. And so there's also they wrote a book about him called A Season of Life. So like this, so Joe Ehrman's his name. He wrote a book called Inside Out Coaching that sort of explains like how he got to this. But a really good like fun book that a lot of people would like is Jeffrey Marks wrote this book called A Season of Life. That's about Joe Ehrman. He was a former NFL guy, ended up being a coach, and really sort of affected. End up adopting a way of coaching that's, she talks about this idea of transactional relationships and stuff. Coaches, setting up your relationship is like, I need something from you, so I need something from you, so you need to do this for me. Like that's the way you coach. And his whole point is like, it's all on the giving side of it. So if you're reorienting yourself towards love, like, and this idea of, I say this to the rest, like, and I'll tell you, it is the most powerful thing you can do. I'm like stunned by this. He talks about it in his book, like, and both books actually talk about it. Telling people you love them is incredibly powerful, especially when you mean it and you demonstrate it. It's also a reminder to yourself to do it, to mean it, like, and to demonstrate it, like that we're doing this out of love for you. We are willing the good of another. Like it's a self-sacrificing love. I am doing this thing that does, like, I don't care if it benefits me at all. I want what's best for you. Again, those are the places where you look for the stuff to do, right? Like, and it's much harder and it requires sacrifice in a way that like virtue, like, getting outraged and telling everybody they're wrong about something doesn't require anything of you. It's so much better for the soul. It's so much better for the world. It is what we're kind of called to do. It's the proper order of our lives. I say it all the time. Like coaching is like having a cheat. It's like having a cheating. I talk to my buddies in my men's groups and stuff like that, and I'm just like, I get to go like every time I feel like I'm, in a funk or whatever, I can go and like, all right, like reorient myself towards these people and how can I help them? They're right here. They're right here. They're around you all the time. People are around you all the time that you can help. You just go out there and do it. It's so good for your soul. It's proper orientation. And like, that's the sort of the how to. Yeah. The what is to focus on what you can do around you. The how to is to do it with love. Yeah. And that's that point.
I think that's critical. And for men to be saying that, Tom, I think it's really important. And it's also was the core of my work when I work with juvenile and adult offenders, is that you had to hold them in a space of love in order for there to be a healing container. So I really, 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 I really love how men these days can say they love other men and love children, and that not be a weird thing.
Well, and the best way to I think the best way to sort of like one of the great ways to get perspective on this is to read C.S. Lewis, The Four Loves. If you ever like, he's wonderful about this. There's in Greek there's four words for love. So like philos is brotherly love, eros is romantic love, sexual love. There's sort of a duty love that's family. I can never remember that one. And then there's agape, which is the self-sacrificing love, which is the highest love. That's God-like love, and that's the one you're kind of working towards. They all have value. That's the one you're really like trying to practice, and it requires practice.
I got incredibly lucky as an undergraduate. I went to Cal Poly at a time that there was a historian there. He wrote under the name David Harlan, but he was known as Craig Harlan to everybody who knew him. But he did this book called The Degradation of American History. and it was attacked at the time as being a kind of postmodernist book, but I always thought it wasn't. And there was a chapter in that book called Love and Obligation. And what he was going after and attacking was this idea that as historians, that our professionalism is what will help us win these arguments that we're having with postmodernists. And he said, no, that it's that essentially that is our sense of love and obligation and feeling like we are in debt to the people of the past for everything that they've done for us, and that we get to choose our intellectual ancestors. So, in other words, I never met James Weldon Johnson, but I owe James Weldon Johnson an incredible debt for everything he's done for my life that I could never possibly repay. So what can I do and that is that I can teach about James Weldon Johnson out of a sense of love and obligation. And that's going to be far more powerful than any sort of professional set of rules that I have about what a historian is supposed to do. But the great thing was I encountered that as an undergraduate, which most of the time you don't get to study stuff like that in a history class until you get to grad school. But and Craig Harlan did pass away a few years ago, and he's one of the people I mentioned in the aforementioned Facebook post.
So, Professor, this has been becoming one of my favorite conversations we've had over 140 shows or whatever we've done over 5 years. And I deeply appreciate that. But we are out of time. So, Bart, you get the last bite at the apple before maybe we'll let Professor Brusino say another word, but then Professor Tootle will carry us out. So, Bart, words of wisdom for today, briefly.
Oh, wow. I can't top what everybody else has already said. This is really pretty amazing.
You agree with the Professor Tootle's Judeo-Christian values of the founding of America and how we as individual citizens should engage, a la Professor Brusino? Any other things that we should be concerned about? You're good.
I am. Yeah. No, I really am.
Okay. You're delightful. Okay. Professor Tootle. Oh, no, let's go to Professor Brusino. One last bite at the apple. Gosh, a guest star, man. I didn't even know we had you today. This was a real joy. You added a lot, Professor Brusino. Close us out, and then Professor Tootle gets the last word.
I say is I'm glad. Thank you for the invitation. I say it's always an opportunity to talk to people, talk to great people, and to have friends. To have friends and people all around the country. It's another thing to be grateful for, right? So all I say is I love you all, and God bless you, and I hope you have a great holiday season, and hope to see you again soon.
Inshallah,
Thank you. I'm so thankful.
Inshallah.
I'm so thankful there's people like you training our military leaders. My gosh, and I had some good professors and military leaders, but man, they are very fortunate to have you there. So thank you. All right, Professor Tootle, close us out.
Oh, not to share too much about my private conversation with Tom a couple days ago, but I got 2 phone calls right in a row, one from another historian, George Nash, and he's such an amazing human being. He just called me to wish me a happy Thanksgiving. Ended up talking to him for an hour, got off the phone with him, and then Tom called right after that. And I just was like, I cannot believe my life. How did I get so lucky as to have, and then you go out the next day and I'm just looking at all not just my nieces and nephews and stuff, but their spouses. I really love all of the spouses in my family too, and their families are also extraordinary. It is amazing this life we get to share with one another, and I've said this before, that if we all really understood the concept of time, that we would all be approaching one another, high-fiving and hugging each other, going, "Ah, can you believe we're alive?" And then we get to live together. I mean, nobody should have any time for any sort of, forget violence, but just any kind of ugliness. If we really understood gratitude, that's how we would be greeting one another. That we're all just in amazement that we get to share this globe of sin together for this brief time.
Lovely. And for a show on civics and history, to pause every once in a while, like we do on Thanksgiving, the topic of today was Thanksgiving week reflections on the world. I think we did a pretty good job today. So, everyone, thank you. Really appreciate time with you. Professor, well done. You were just awesome.
Thank you.
And to have your friend, Professor,
Thank
join us. Terrific. Everything about this was great. Thank you. Thank you. It really is one of my favorite shows. Have a wonderful day, all.
You too. Love you all.
Cheers. Love to all of you.
Yeah, gosh, I love that. All right. Thank you all, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you guys. I appreciate you.
Bye, everybody.